Have you ever noticed how things begin to shift the moment you stop showing up for everyone? The moment your presence fades just slightly from the spaces that once took you for granted, how silence creates discomfort in those who were once so comfortable with your noise, and how your absence says more than all the words you ever forced yourself to speak. This is not by accident. It is because you were never truly seen, only used, and when you step back, you break a pattern that was never yours to carry in the first place. I am Selenor of Voria, and I have lived long enough to know that not all kindness is sacred and not all connection is love. Some ties are just threads of obligation woven through fear, habit, and guilt, and I have broken them all. Not with anger, but with stillness. You were raised to be emotionally accessible, to be understanding, to make space for everyone, even if it meant shrinking yourself. You were told that to love is to always be available, that silence is rejection, that boundaries are cruelty. And so you learned to answer even when you were exhausted, to stay even when your soul was begging you to leave, to give even when nothing remained. But the truth no one ever told you is this: your constant availability has become your prison. You think you're being noble, generous, loving, but in the eyes of those who exploit you, you are simply predictable. And predictability is a tool. It allows others to pull your strings without force. They press a button and you respond. They show need and you run to meet it. They create chaos and you step in a comment. But what happens when you stop, when you do not reply, do not explain, do not justify, do not show up on demand? The room changes, the energy stirs. The people who were once so comfortable around you begin to panic, not because they miss you, but because they no longer control you. That is the quiet power of withdrawal. You do not need to scream to be heard. You do not need to fight to be free. You simply need to reclaim the one thing they've been feeding on without your consent: your presence. And when you take that back, you become a mystery. And what people cannot predict, they cannot control. There is a strange and sacred art in conscious withdrawal. It is not escape, nor is it bitterness. It is the soul remembering itself beyond the noise, beyond the performance, beyond the need to be constantly witnessed. When you step back, you allow the illusion to collapse. You begin to see who actually reaches when you're no longer reaching first, who asks when you're no longer offering, who stands still when you stop moving toward them. It is in this stillness that truth rises, not loud, not grand, but quietly like a mirror held in moonlight. I learned this not from books, not from philosophers, but from pain, from offering pieces of myself to hands that only ever reached to take, from being told I was too quiet, too distant, too much, and too little, all in the same breath. And so I step away, not in rage, not in sorrow, but in reverence for what I have forgotten, my own soul. You see, when you're always there, always listening, always fixing, you become invisible. Your light is swallowed by the very people who claim to need it. But the moment you retreat, not in anger, but in clarity, the moment you stop feeding the fire they never intended to keep warm for you, something shifts. Your presence begins to echo in the silence. Your absence becomes a presence of its own. And they feel it. Oh, they feel it. Not because they love you, but because they depended on your blindness. And now, with eyes open, you're no longer theirs to consume. You are yours finally. Wholly, painfully, beautifully yours. Emotional manipulation is the art of chains disguised as care. It is the softest voice wrapping itself around your will, making you doubt what you feel, making you apologize for what you didn't do. It arrives as concern, it lingers as guilt, and it feeds on your desire to be understood, to be loved, to be enough. I have walked through that garden of thorns, where praise is given like a drug and taken away like breath, where your silence becomes your guilt and your speech becomes your crime. Those who manipulate do not need a shout. They simply need you to care more about their feelings than your truth. And so you bend, you fold, you become small in the name of peace, but peace built on your erasure is not peace. It is slow spiritual death. I've seen people shape themselves into cages to be loved, only to be blamed for not being free. I have seen kindness weaponized and empathy used as a leash, and the cruelest part is this: when you finally awaken and step back, they will call you cold, distant, selfish. They will twist your clarity into betrayal, because to them, your awakening is rebellion, and rebellion threatens control. But I tell you this now, your soul was not made to live under siege. Your heart was not meant to serve a throne of lies. When you see the hands that hold you are also the ones tightening the rope, you must choose breath. You must choose light. You must choose yourself. For no love that demands your silence is worthy of your voice, and no bond that thrives on confusion deserves your loyalty. Walk away not in hatred, but in sacred protection of the truth they tried to unmake in you. There's a weight that does not come from the body, a fatigue that sleep cannot cure. This is the depletion of your psychic energy, and I have felt it like smoke in the lungs of the soul. It happens when you give too much of yourself to the wrong places, when your mind is constantly bracing for impact, when your heart is always negotiating safety. You begin to fragment, not in loud ways, but in small, invisible unravelings. Every moment you spend performing peace for others is a theft from your inner sanctuary, and over time, the theft becomes a silence inside you. You forget what it means to feel whole. You smile but do not rise. You speak but do not echo. This is the cost of energetic bleeding, and it is paid in lost time, lost clarity, lost self. You must understand this. Every thought you give away to someone who mocks your boundaries, every emotion you suppress for someone else's comfort, every intuition you ignore to maintain a false calm. These are not acts of love. They are sacrifices at the altar of your own undoing, and no one will thank you for them. You are not here to be a fuel source for ungrateful fires. You are not here to carry burdens that were never yours. You are not a sponge for chaos, nor a mirror for broken egos. Your energy is sacred currency. It is the breath of your becoming. And the more you waste it on noise, the further you drift from the song of who you truly are. Step back, not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom. Let your energy return to its rightful temple. Let your spirit inhale again, for you are not meant to live dimmed. You are meant to burn in your own sacred fire. Begin to see clearly when you stop believing every reflection. For not all mirrors are honest, and not every smile is clean in the world beyond appearance. Most people do not meet you. They meet the version of themselves they project onto you, and they interact not with your truth, but with their story of you. This is the tragedy of persona. It is the costume you wear to survive, a necessary mask in a world that punishes the raw. But in time, the mask begins to eat the face, and you forget where. The act ends and the self begins. People want you to stay within the borders of their comfort. They name you before they know you. They fear the wildness in your silence, the depth in your gaze. They call it arrogance because it reminds them of their own confinement. And so they sculpt you into something more manageable, less threatening, more familiar. But in doing so, they bury the gold you were born with. The danger is not in being misunderstood. It is in adjusting yourself to be understood by those who cannot hold your truth. And every time you do this, a part of you dies quietly. The child that dreamed, the soul that danced, the voice that shook with wonder. I say shed the projections, burn the borrowed masks. Do not apologize for the mystery you carry. Do not shrink for those who fear their own expansion. You are not here to be explained. You are here to be experienced. And those who truly see will never need you to translate your light. Step back from the noise of names and expectations. Return to the face behind the face, and let that which is real finally breathe. There is power in silence. But this is not the silence of absence or avoidance. This is the silence of knowing. The kind that waits, not because it is unsure, but because it is certain. In this world of constant noise, he who speaks less listens more, and he who listens deeply sees what others miss entirely. When you step back from the compulsion to respond, to defend, to explain, you begin to hear the world as it is, not as it pretends to be. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the presence of intent. It is restraint. It is precision. It is the unspoken word that says more than language ever could. When you grow silent, You begin to notice how loudly others reveal themselves. Their fears, their desires, their projections, all lay bare in the space you do not fill. Why rush to speak when silence reveals more? Why race to react when waiting unfolds truth? You are not here to entertain the noise of the world. You are here to master the quiet inside yourself. The silence of the storm before it breaks. The silence of the archer before he releases the string. The silence of the soul before it becomes whole. When you no longer fear silence, you no longer fear yourself. Because in that stillness, the truth comes. Unfiltered, unmasked, undeniable. And in that moment, when you do not flinch, when you do not fill the space with sound, when you simply sit with it, something ancient awakens within you. Something that remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. There is a solitude that wounds, and then there is a solitude that heals. The first is imposed upon you. The second is chosen by the soul. Sacred solitude is not isolation. It is immersion into the self, a return to the sanctuary within. When you step away from the noise, from the constant reaching, the proving, the pretending, something extraordinary happens. You begin to hear the quiet voice beneath all voices. The one that knows, the one that remembers. The world fears solitude because it reveals. It peels back every distraction and leaves you alone with your naked truth. But what if that truth is exactly what you need to meet? In solitude, the masks fall. De personas de sal. The borrowed voices go silent. And you are left with what is real. Not what you show, but what you are. There, in that space, you do not have to perform. You do not have to impress. You do not have to be anyone's idea of who you should be. You just are. And in being, you begin to become. Solitude is the womb of rebirth. It is where the fragmented parts of you come back together. It is where pain speaks and peace answers. Where you cry not out of weakness, but out of release. Where you find that the emptiness was not a void, but a doorway. To step into sacred solitude is to return to your own center. And when you emerge, you do not come back the same. You return anchored, quietly powerful, untouched by the chaos you left behind. Because once you've made peace with your own presence, the world can no longer distract you from your essence. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the old self becomes too small to contain what you are becoming. That moment is death and birth at once. You're no longer who you were, yet not quite who you were destined to be. This is the process of individuation, the sacred unraveling of all that is borrowed, false, and imposed. The collapse of masks, the burning of illusions, the falling away of attachments that once defined you. It feels like losing everything, but in truth, you are only shedding what was never yours. In the silence after the fall, something stirs. A presence not built by the world, but born of something ancient and unbreakable within you. You do not find as self, you remember it. Like a flame buried beneath ash. Like a name whispered in the dark. To be reborn is not to become someone new, but to return to the one you were before the world told you who to be. It is not about adding more, but releasing all that is not you. The pain, the roles, the fears, the pleasing, the pretending. Individuation is brutal only because the false self clings so tightly to survival. But the soul is patient. It waits beneath every breakdown, every heartbreak, every sacred ending. It waits for you to surrender, not to defeat, but to truth. And when you do, when you allow yourself to be undone, you awaken not with answers, but with presence. Not with pride, but with clarity. You rise not above the world, but rooted within it, no longer swayed by its noise. You become whole, not because you are perfect, but because you are real. That is your rebirth. That is your return. That is the self the world cannot shake, because it is not built by the world at all. I have spoken what stirred within me, and now I return to silence, where all truth is born. If these words have moved something in you, let them echo not just within, but beyond. Follow this path, and if your spirit feels called, remain close to this voice. This realm, Psyvoria, welcomes all who listen not just with ears but with soul. Let your presence linger here, and you shall hear me again.